it with patients. And then one of the pieces of my work was understanding the necessity or the importance of doing things just like most of us are today, here in person, although it looks like maybe there's a virtual feed. Are there other people watching virtually as well?
They will be.
They will be, okay, thank you. So you're missing out, right? You're not here in person. And face-to-face, it turns out really makes a difference. This has been studied by psychologists for 50, 60 years now, right? In understanding why something like face-to-face conversations are different than talking to someone over the phone or over a video conference or a recorded video. And from a psychological perspective, we understand that we're more engaged. We build stronger relationships. Those relationships last longer when we're face-to-face with another person. And what I found out is this carries over into the world of technology. And that's how I started building things like these cute little robots. So let me open my eyes here. Maybe I can't do it very well. So started building and prototyping stuff like this about 20 years ago. And the rationale behind this was, again, all about the psychology. From the perspective of being an entrepreneur and starting a company, it would have been a whole lot easier if I did not have to build any hardware. Right? But unfortunately, in terms of the clinical outcomes that we were going for with patients, having this hardware element along with the AI turns out it made a big difference in terms of the ability to engage someone in a conversation, but more importantly, keep them coming back day after day, week after week, month after month, and for many of our patients, year after year, with some patients using these programs for many years. And so in the early days, just to test this out, if you're at the kind of early stages, you want to get to that first thing that you can test with a customer, a client, a patient, whatever it might be. I was hand building the early robots myself 20 years ago. I was fortunate to be working in the MIT Media Lab where we had a full shop. But today, these kinds of tools are relatively accessible to a lot of us. There are a number of places that we can go find these, around the Bay Area, for example, and start to prototype. And so, with that, we were able to build kind of that proof of concept. At first, I built about 20 of these by hand, put these out in patients' homes for a couple of months, and showed that worked. And just like starting any new enterprise, any startup, you want to get that first proof of concept. You want to show that people are going to use this, that people want to use this. And that was enough confidence for me to kind of take this to the next level. And as I finished my PhD, to start turning this into my first company. So I launched a company in 2007 called Intuitive Automata. And it was taking a much earlier version of this. I'll talk about this one in a minute. And the area I was working in at the time was in diabetes and weight management. So I commercialized that work in my first company, and ended up building a robot that at that time, so in 2007, 2008, hardware wasn't this small, right? So it's a little bit bigger than this, although not a whole lot. Built a line of robots that were our patient interface, but most of what we were selling was a service that had this AI-driven platform behind it to generate conversations with patients and interact back and forth with that individual, and then get information back to a doctor or a nurse or the appropriate person in the healthcare system. So I want to talk for a minute, because this is kind of a preview for what I'll talk about at the end. The biggest challenge here is building a business where you're trying to do something different in an industry. For me, that's always been in healthcare, for the companies that I've started. And that is an industry, like pretty much any big industry, that is very hesitant to accept any kind of change. and so that was the biggest hurdle. We were clinically successful with patients, but it took about 5 years to get any, not even that big of deals with some pharma companies, some payers, some hospital systems. And so what I ended up doing as an entrepreneur after about 6 or 7 years of running this company was deciding, okay, time for a bit of a kind of shift in direction and focus really on what the business opportunity might be for a technology like this. And again, it was clinically successful in patients, right? But just getting those outcomes is not necessarily enough to build a business. So in 2013, I think about 11 years ago, I moved back to the US. So I actually based that first company in Hong Kong, largely for economic reasons. I had some good partnerships in Hong Kong and in mainland China. But the market was the US, so I was traveling back and forth a lot. I moved to the Bay Area 11 years ago and ended up starting another company called Italia Health. Now, from a technology standpoint, we were able to advance the robot technology. We built these cute little things. We brought in IDEO, the design firm, as one of our partners. They did the design of this robot. It's called Mebu. The AI technology, we were able to iterate on that and make something that was much more powerful in terms of its interactions with patients and the kinds of things that we were able to do. But I think most importantly, going into that company, I found an opportunity and I'll describe it briefly because it's not really the point here, right? So I ended up working with some of the large pharmaceutical manufacturers because the pharma companies are making drugs. And for a lot of the more expensive drugs that require more care, they provide programs for patients to do the follow-up. And so the way that usually works is they contract with the big pharmacies, so things like CVS and Walgreens, where they've got call centers full of nurses that are calling patients typically about once a month. Instead of that, we replaced that with a program that at the high level looked the same. We're still doing that care management follow-up for patients, but instead of a call center full of nurses, we put cute little robots in each one of our patients' homes. And so the point here is not so much the specifics of that and what we did, but it was finding that business opportunity that for our customer, so I ended up working with, my big customers were Pfizer and Novartis. So we're talking about, pretty big companies here. For them, at the highest level, it still looks kind of the same as what they're doing today. And so we found an opportunity to introduce interactive robotics and artificial intelligence into these programs. And 8, 9, 10 years ago, this was very cutting edge. Even today, it's challenging to do some of this. But found a way to get this in where they liked it, they accepted it, and patients loved it, right? So the feedback that they got was very important. And so, at that point, we went from prototyping things like this with IDEO and kind of, something quick stood up on the back end to be able to communicate with these, to turning this into a commercial grade product, right? So really developing a robust, AI back end that could service thousands and then tens of thousands of these robots out in the field, moving our manufacturing to a partner in China from, kind of prototyping here in San Francisco, and being able to scale this up, start to ship this to a lot of different patients out in the field, supporting people across a lot of different disease states. So for me, that was the exciting part of the journey, right? It took a lot of work to get there, right? Going from these early prototypes up to something that, is actually out and live and, seeing feedback from patients all the time in terms of all these automated conversations that we're getting. And I think we're at a very exciting point in time now with, essentially the advent of generative AI. And let's say that with a little asterisk, right? Because the concepts have been around for about 40 years or so, right? But the tools that are available today and what we're able to do at scale is drastically different than anything we've ever seen before. So let me do a quick time check on myself. Okay, so what I'll do here, I want to pause for just a second and to give a little more, kind of concrete ideas what we're talking about. If we can play this video here.
I can help.
Awesome. Thank you. So it's just about 2.5 minutes, I think, is the one that we have pulled up here. And then I want to talk about, a little bit about what I'm doing today, and would love to hear from some of you at lunch about some of the things that you're working on.
Voice.
How are you feeling today?
Like roadkill.
I'm sorry to hear that. Would you like me to send a message to your team to see if there's anything they can do?
Yes.
I'm glad you were able to talk with your pharmacist and that they adjusted your medication. How are you feeling today?
Better. Thanks, Francie.
It's a nice, sunny day out. Think you might go for a walk.
Sure.
Don't forget your medication and a bottle of water. Want me to set a reminder?
Good idea.
Thanks. Quick note on there. I did my first, I talked about the 20 of these I built 18 years ago, I think, put these out in the homes in the Boston area. And, one of the pleasant surprises is after a couple of months, I go back to pick these up. What I found is that most people had dressed up their robots. Every single person had named them, right? So these kinds of emotional connections that people can develop with technology that is interactive is quite impressive. And again, I think that comes to the opportunity today in terms of leveraging things like generative AI and some of these cutting edge technologies. So I exited Catalia Health at the end of last year. And since then, I'm splitting my time doing a couple things. I'm doing some consulting, a little bit for startups and then for pharma companies and med device companies. But the other half of my time is now as an investor, part of a new fund that we'll actually publicly announce next week. But I can talk about it a little bit today. The fund is called Raisewell Ventures, and we're focused on healthcare technology, climate tech, and kind of the evolution of manufacturing. We're investing mostly in early stage startups in the US and a little bit in Southeast Asia. But the thing I care about and like about it is, focused on companies that are doing some good, right? Trying to have a positive impact in the world. And, one of the things that I'm really looking for, as we're evaluating companies right now is, founders who have figured out how to take this technology into the marketplace and be successful at building a business. One of the tricky things right now is, like I said, and all of you know because you're here, there's so much opportunity with the cutting edge technology and the things that we're able to do with generative AI that there are a ton of ideas out there. The number of pitches that I'm seeing on a weekly basis around generative AI, it's hard to keep up and even look at all of them. And what I'm looking for is the ones that stand out because there is a smart go-to-market strategy, right? How do you differentiate yourself in the marketplace? What's going to give you success at not just having being able to do something with the AI? Because I think there are a lot of examples of that out there right now. Some really cool things we can do, from like the art that we saw a few minutes ago to healthcare, and I'm seeing a lot also around climate and manufacturing, like you said. But what's going to make you stand out in terms of building that company and being able to, not just launch a product, but generate real revenue and have a real impact on the world. So with that, I don't want to keep you from lunch for much longer. I'm happy to take a question or two here now, and then I can stick around and talk over lunch if anyone wants to.
So what's happening with Mayhew now for the patients who had it?
So the question is, what's happening with Mayhew now? So we've had a lot of different programs over the 10-year life of Catalia Health. What ended up happening is one of the big customers bought a bunch of the assets to continue using those with their patients. Unfortunately, it wasn't able to continue for everyone, but sadly, that's how these things go sometimes.
So I had experience talking to the insurance companies for my own device,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a very difficult conversation with them. I mean, for breast cancer devices,
Right.
They said that if we don't change anything,
Mm-hmm.
we are making about $1 billion.
Yeah.
So that,
Yeah, the insurance companies' viewpoints are very interesting. One of the things that I cared about across both companies that I built, for everything that we rolled out, there was not a cost to the patient. Right? We always figured out how to have somebody else pay for it. So pretty much everything we did at Catalia Health was paid for by the pharma company because they already have pockets of money for these care management programs. We also did things with some providers. So we rolled out a program with Kaiser Permanente for heart failure patients, but it was kind of included as part of what the patient would get in the heart failure clinic. In the back.
Yeah, as you alluded to, one of the key issues in healthcare is having that physical interaction. But as COVID prevented all of that, as you're aware, there was a significant increase in number of suicides, especially among the teens, because of further isolation during COVID. So one of the things that's emerged is the use of AI for mood analysis.
Mm-hmm.
How do you envision your robot to be used, in lieu of that physical interaction, to kind of sense not only in terms of the interaction with the robot, you see a decline in the mood, whatever we use in the marketplace, a sentiment analysis or a mood analysis to identify the tendencies to further decline on.
Yeah, I'll say a couple things about that, really briefly. One is that the technology is actually pretty powerful. And I think one of the cool things about it is you can embed it in other places. I know a few companies, and I advise one of them that's leveraging that technology in a call center, right? So you've got patients calling in to a doctor or a payer, and well, just in the background, you're looking at all of this. We did some of the same things in patients interacting with Maybu. We were never able to roll that out at scale, but we did have that in some of these programs. And to me, I think the interesting thing about this is, leveraging this not necessarily to try to quote unquote fix the problem, but to identify when there's an issue so that a human can reach out, right? And I think that's one of the powerful things about these kinds of technologies where you can do things like sentiment analysis across potentially every conversation that you can capture in some way, right? That's the opportunity. It's not necessarily using the technology, like I said, to quote unquote fix the problem, but it's about figuring out when there is an issue. And I know that, during COVID, teen suicides, actually all age suicides did increase. And, research shows that the answer is, or the reason is probably even more complex in COVID, right? There are a lot of trends that we've seen for some time now. But I think, in understanding how we can use technology, again, to identify problems so that, someone can reach out, someone can seek help, right? You can look at this from both sides. I think that's a great use of these kinds
To
of.
provide alerts to the caretakers.
Exactly.
There's a decline in the sentiment. Now, we overall positive act, so some positively visual, effects as well.
Definitely.
Sometimes mood change detection is not just verbal, also in body action.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot that you can see. Great. Any other questions? Yes?
So you mentioned one of the things you focus on is the go-to-market strategy for startups. Do you have any processes for developing a smart go-to-market strategy?
Good question. Unfortunately, it kind of varies a lot depending on what kind of company, what market, what stage, et cetera. If it's like a big entrenched industry, like I was talking about in healthcare, finding a way you fit into existing processes, ways of thinking, ways of procurement, whatever it might be, what's relevant that's going to get you in the door, right? That's one of them. If we're thinking about more consumer, then it's sometimes, what you might think of as a clever hack at first, but something that can scale and really make a difference. There's a lot of different ways of looking at it, but I think that, knowing that the founder or the founding team care about that and are paying attention to it from day one is really the most important thing. One last question, or are we ready for 12:30? Sorry, I wasn't the only thing standing in the way of lunch. That's great. Okay.
So I can, take it from you, but if we have any more questions, you have Corey Kidd here, who is one of the wonderful friends of mine, and go ahead and ask more questions if you do.
Oh, there's one right here. Okay, good. Well, unfortunately, because someone else now owns the whole back end, I can no longer connect to it with this. So, these are, I would say, semi-intelligent devices. So, like all of the, if we turn this on, there's a camera embedded in here, so it can kind of see where I am and look around, and it can do the speech recognition, but not the language understanding on here. And then everything else happens on the back end. It's about 7 or 8 years ago, we finally got to the point where the latency in communicating with the back end was low enough that we could just move everything there, have much more processing power. So unfortunately, what that means is something like this now can't do much. Yeah. All the way back.
For you, what are some of the biggest issues you see when you're trying to help scale these different products? How is the impact of the market? How is that? What are the biggest difficulties there?
Unfortunately, that's a very long list. And it really varies based on stage of company, sector, et cetera. I mean, I can talk from my personal experience. As I was looking at scaling Catalia Health in like the early days, one of the challenges was getting the contracting in place, right? Working with these really big companies, they're not necessarily inclined to want to trust a startup, right? And so, kind of getting over the hurdle of doing these deals. Related to that, working in healthcare, there's a lot of legal and regulatory challenges that you have to get over. simultaneously being able to go in and start scaling manufacturing for a product like this as a startup, or have very limited resources, is a whole set of challenges as well, along with the logistics of handling that, right? Having something like this manufactured, in our case in China, shipped to a distribution center in the US, getting these out to patients. And so, on any given day, one or another of these could be the biggest challenge. And then, in other industries, obviously, you've got different things. I'm looking at a company right now that's, trying to build a bunch of, physical facilities near power generating stations, right? And so they're having trouble finding land and, capital to build the next set of installations, things like that. Is there one more question here? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, earlier we had a speaker mention about the difference between Gen AI edge and the cloud-based and something. So there's no AI in this robot right now. It's supposed to rely on a back-end cloud service behind it. Is that it?
Correct. Yeah. No, at Catalia Health, when we first built prototypes back in 2014, 2015, it all lived on the device. But then, with kind of latency to the cloud decreasing, we were able to move it to the cloud, and it turned out that we've tried to build this. We tried to build this as a very low cost device, right? So think about it. I mean, at this point, it's like a 5-year-old process, tablet processor on here, right? So you could do that, but it was really slow. Now with Gen AI, you couldn't do that, right? But we can move everything to the cloud. We can kind of think of it as essentially infinite processing power there for what we need, and do that, get the conversation back to this device faster than we could have run it on the device itself with a low-cost device.
Do you see the future doing something like this?
I think it'll continue to go back and forth, right? It depends on the technology. If we look at, the current instantiation of Gen AI, a lot of it is still quite, processor and memory hungry, right? Intensive. And so it's hard to do, you could not do that on a low-cost device like this. But if we look ahead in the not too distant future, it's going to shift back that way. And then we're going to have algorithms that right? It's going to keep going back and forth for as long as we can predict that with that. All right. Well, thank you. I'll try to stick around for a little bit. Unfortunately, I can't stick around for the end of the day, but happy to answer any questions over lunch in a few minutes. So thank you for the invitation.
So I want to tell you that, when I first met Corey, he had given a talk, and I tracked him down on LinkedIn, and I said, oh, I really like this device, I want to talk about it. And I said, sure, come on over. So I think that's how it all started with me. I do have a presentation on startups. We did have a talk about startups, and we just kind of skipped it because we thought everybody was talking. But can you help me with this? So basically, I have done a bunch of startups, as I mentioned, and I do have some of my stuff here. If anybody wants to come and look, I have done both hardware and software, and I love hardware because I think I like tangible things. When you do something with software, it's very difficult to see actually what happens. I'm sure Sarko's love app is very good, but okay, so I want to kind of answer some of your questions about startups, or I can just talk about startups, and talk about it from my own perspective, because I have kind of, experience in the field. And I'm going to start with, hang on one second, let me just, in terms of one of these presentations, I'm happy, we're going to post this for all of you, so you don't have to worry about getting it. So I'm going to start with my device. It was called RIST. And basically, you're welcome to come and look at it. I'm going to show you how I communicated with a lot of people about this. So I'm going to go off mic because I want to show you. If it's okay. Can you hear me? So I have two documents here. One of them is, for a lot of startups, and even if you're not a startup and you're thinking about doing a startup, it helps to write it down. I think that one of the things that That's okay. Can you hear me? So,
Students maybe.
so I'm, for whatever startup I usually do, I start to visualize it. Whenever I'm thinking about something, and that's a part of ideation, is to write it down and try to, and if I don't see the problem and if I don't see a solution, I cannot come up with an idea. So that's why I write everything. Now, this might be a little too, designing for some of you. So it doesn't matter how you produce it, but I think that it helps you go through your process. And one of the techniques, so this one is actually a business plan. So when I was approaching VCs or whoever, I would send them this. And this is more of a marketing brochure. So you can come and look at it. It talks about the design of the device. And basically the idea, which I filed a couple of patents on it, was about the wearables. And so the whole idea was to go ahead, how it is that we always run out of battery, whether you have a smartphone or you have a laptop or you have a wearable, you always run out of battery, especially if you're using it. So the whole idea was to, Apple and Samsung and all of these guys are, designing these wearables. But the idea was to go ahead and make two devices as opposed to one. And one of them was a full battery. So whenever you started to, women are just wearing bracelets. So the idea was that whenever one ran out of the battery, you just take the other one, attach it to it, and you had a battery that was just constantly being charged. So that was the idea behind wrist. And when I started to work on it, and this is a business plan, so it's if anybody is interested, come and have a look at this. I usually start by analyzing, the technique that's called business model canvas. And if you haven't heard about it, I think you should look it up. It's an excellent way of really organizing your thoughts. It gives you an idea about, here this image that you cannot see. But you have the idea, and then you think about all of the issues that's going to impact the idea, how to bring it to market, who's the customer, who's the competition. So it's sort of like a glorified SWOT analysis. One of the things that we're going to do actually today in the hackathon section is, and one of the things that I did about the SB 1047 was to look at it from a SWOT analysis. You look at the piece of legislature and say, okay, so what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, what are the opportunities and threats? That's the way my brain works. Whenever I look at something, I have to analyze it and figure out if it's doable or not. So that's one. And this is the other one. It just really talks about the numbers. For example, how many of you have iPhones? A lot of you. So when I was doing my device, I basically did a complete cost analysis on how, the cost of manufacturing of an iPhone, and this was the marketing cost for people who are interested in the marketing. Whenever you go into a market that's already, there's somebody in there, you really need to know the cost. Really, if you're going, one of your takeaways about a startup is that you need to know the numbers. And if you don't know the numbers for whatever field you're in, go find somebody who does. Because that's going to make it or break it in terms of your product. Now, this is a bit old, but at the time when I did this analysis, the manufacturing cost of making an iPhone, and this is the iPhone 5, so we have come along from there. So the cost was $206.85. Then this was so the other side was the cost of what we call operating costs. How much it costs to do the research and development, administration, how much it costs to pay the Apple guys, licensing fees. The market price of that device was $649.99. They made $293.06 on every iPhone 5 that they sold. So that's how Apple makes money. They doubled the cost of the manufacturing, and that was their margin. That's a pretty good margin. When you look at some of the other industries, they don't have such a, they do not have such a expressive, really impressive margins, but Apple does, and one of the reasons that they have a lot of money is because, you pay for the marketing costs, you pay for the manufacturing, you pay for it, so you get. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit, is there any questions about that? No, so I'm going to talk about something that, this is another startup, it's called Jaded. And I exited this, so I sold the idea actually. So there are actually various exits when you have a startup. It's not all, Mark Zuckerberg, exit, and you make a lot of money or Sam Altman. There are smaller exits. And so this was an idea, and it comes back to how you come up with your ideas. You really don't have to be a super genius to come up with anything great. You really have to look around you and see what is out there that you find a gap, that there's something you want, but it's not out there, right? And so I came up with the idea, actually, Sakura did the poster for me for LinkedIn, which I'm not going to use. I don't know if he has the poster or not, but if you can put it up there, I can show you how I came up with the idea for Jaded. Now, I don't know if you have heard about the golden means or not, golden ratio, but when you look at a lot of the Greek statues, they are perfect because they are perfectly symmetrical. Now, when you look at my face, and I don't know if someone has it or not.
So you won't get the.
Yeah. So when you look at my face is actually not symmetrical. And at the time, when I came up with this idea, there were lots of cosmetic companies were coming up with these apps saying, download this app and see this lipstick on it and see this. And I looked at these apps and they had these gorgeous models. So what looks on there, that's really fantastic. It doesn't really look that great on me. But the other idea was that these apps, they, when they kind of scan you and all of that, they don't fix your face. They just kind of show your face and, they just apply some generic stuff on top of it and then, you get whatever it is. So if you look at this picture of mine, my face is not symmetrical. So if you kind of go like this, this half of my face is actually a little bit shorter than the other half. So it's about 1/4 of an inch. So, what I have is like, it kind of distorts that because, I'm tilting my head. But the idea came to me at the time, a lot of people were doing facial recognition software. And the cosmetic, so the cosmetic market actually is a $1 trillion market. There's a lot of money in it. There's a lot of money in lipstick and, all this other stuff that women buy. So I did the actual analysis. And since I'm no longer under NDA, I can talk about it because I exited. So there is something called the golden ratio in the face. When you do analysis, when you kind of scan your face, you can put a golden ratio mask on top of it. And that will kind of allow you to, it analyzes your face and makes it more symmetrical, which is whether you use it or not in terms of the makeup, it still kind of shows you some techniques as to how to make yourself a little bit more symmetrical so you look better in the pictures of whatever it is that you do. So I sold the idea to some Korean company because Koreans are one of the biggest manufacturers of skincare in the world. I think they're going to dominate that market. They already are doing it, but I think they're going to do it by another 5 years or so. And the reason for it is because they are using a lot of innovative products. And basically, here, I said J for Jaded. It was a free makeup app, and it was a social media company to go ahead and have people, share tips and tricks. And so this is a bit old. This is about, I would say 73. This was before COVID. So it really kind of, and I talked about AI. So basically, AI helps you go ahead and analyze your face, gives you some tips and tricks, and go from there. And so basically, here is I have a code here. It says, beauty is the eye of the beholder, and it may be necessary from time to time to give a stupid and misinformed beholder a black eye. So that's about, so that's about beauty, right? So it's a big market. And so maybe one of these days you're going to see some ad in the paper that is going to talk about this app that, kind of fixes your face by some actress, so you know where you got it from. So that's basically where it came from. And, I can't complain, it was an interesting exit. And there are other startups that I have done. This one here, that's the only size I have. And I sent that to a bunch of media companies. It's about mixing robots and live people to talk about sports. It's called Sportal. And the reason, the way I came up with this idea was that my nephew is a big sports fan. But you can't really, Steven is doing this live, this video, this talk, but you cannot do that with any sports. If they find out you're doing it, they will come after you because they have the exclusive license to anything about sports, a lot of these big video companies. So the idea behind that was that people, sports, how many people like sports here? Okay. So the idea was for people to sit on a couch and talk to a robot about the show that they were watching on TV. So, you weren't really showing anything on the TV. They were just talking about it. So that is open market. Nobody can tell you can or cannot talk about the, something that you're watching on TV. And that part of it, they were interacting with robot. The robot was called Owl, which is actually is out there. It's a really cute robot. So I encourage you to come and have a look at this. And the robot at the time was not, it was software, but now it can be AI enabled. So basically, you can talk about any sport in the world with just a couple of kids sitting on the sofa and looking at it. And this market is over $1 trillion. So that's another one that I have. So any questions?
I think I missed that part. What sort of license they have?
The license, all of these sports teams, they have big contracts with a lot of media companies. So for example, you have MSNBC or ESPN or whatever it is, any sports channel that you watch, they have locked up the market in terms of all of the teams, all of the players, all of the whatever you see on the media. So they have the lock on that. And if you show, if I just come in here and write down, let's say, Giants on my chest, they're going to sue me. And the reason for it is that they own all of the brands, they own all of the sports teams, right? So because of that, they want to charge, let's say, I don't know, whatever the cost is when you're showing some of these sports games on TV. They make a lot of money out of it, but they also have locked that money. I don't know how it is in other countries, but in the US, the video companies, and actually now they're getting into college games, and they're going to go get into high school games, and they're going to go even below that. So they call it sponsorship fees, and that's really big market for them because people love sports. They can go. There are a lot of people in the US are just really obsessed with sports. But they make their money, and they just don't make their money by you watching the shows on TV or streaming or any way that you consume that. They make their money from merchandising, from movie placements. You name it. There's no place on earth that they can put their logo, and that's really big bucks. So anything you guys want to do in the sports, it's big money, but you really have to understand market that you're going to play. I mean, one of the slides that I have is one of the hardest startups that you can, you should really start small if you're thinking about a startup, but one of the hardest startups that you can do is going to be a kind of a startup that has too many players in the market. If you have a sports team, then you have the media companies, then you have the TV and cable companies, because they're all different. The distribution, who makes it, who consumes it, who distributes it, all of these are different players. So that getting into the sports is one of the most difficult markets that you can get into. But anyway, but there are open opportunities, and I think AI is going to open that up even more. Because if you really think about just being able to chat to chatbots or robots or anybody about any sport anywhere in the world, and you get the data, you get the information. I mean, that's really interesting. And those are some of the markets that are really open. So can I answer your question? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that is.
No. So any other questions? I mean, you talked about marketing and how to come up with a really good marketing thing. But come and have a look at this. Basically, marketing, what Steve Jobs did about marketing for Apple, he created the market. He basically said, this is the device I want, whether it was the laptop that they have, or whether it was the phone, or whatever it is, that Apple makes. They go out there and they really create the market. It's a really interesting marketing that they have, but also their marketing is not fallible, because sometimes it's just too big and you don't understand your customer. But Apple is really good. So if you want to look at the company and how they get the product to the market, I would look at Apple. I think OpenAI has an excellent app. I like it. I use ChatGPT. I use other platforms, but I think it's very nice. It's very clean. It reminds me of the early Google days where you just kind of went to the Google and said, "Oh, what do you want today?" or "How can I help you?" or something like that. So their interface is really clean. But I think from a corporate perspective, they just put this app out there, and all of a sudden, you have 100 million people downloaded it in 2 months. So that was really amazing. But then they also had a lot of corporate stuff that was going on that nobody knew about it, right? And that kind of tarnished the brand a little bit. So Microsoft, I don't know what's going to happen to Microsoft and OpenAI, but it's a very interesting market. I think AI is going to open up opportunities that we really cannot imagine. We had the same discussion about mobile. Everyone just said, there's no killer app. There's no killer app except for ChatGPT. There's really no killer app for AI right now, right? The market is really open, but we really don't know what that killer app is going to be, so it's worth doing. Anybody else? Yes.
So I was curious about the exit. Were you approached by the other company that acquired you, or was that part of the strategy from the beginning was to be acquired?
So
That's really the base.
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. So basically, South Korea has this big event every year. I think it used to be every year. I don't know if they're still doing it or not. So they basically, it's open. Anybody can go and sign up and say, okay, I have a startup. I want to talk to you guys. And if you win something, you can go to South Korea and we have this really gorgeous complex. You can go there. And if you love Korean food and K-drama, I'm there. But, so I applied to that program, and I talked to, so the way South Korea is, they have a lot of big companies. For example, Samsung just doesn't make phones, they make washing machines, they make all sorts of things, right? So they're called the chaebol, which means that they are basically this conglomerate. That's the meaning of chaebol. And they have lots of businesses going. For example, the ones that I talked to were LG Group, and they have makeup, they have cosmetics. So that was something that, so I got talking to them, and all of that. Now, I'm not saying they got it, but what I'm saying is that you have to go where the market is. So whatever it is that you know, my favorite saying is that if you want to get hit by a train, you have to go stand on the railroad tracks. So whoever is your market, you have to kind of be there. And you have to constantly talk to them, because a lot of people are really busy people, so it's very difficult to get to the, get attention. Just like that Google's paper that said all you need is attention. Well, that's not just all you need, that's everything, right? So that's one of the things. But I think that you just have to really, I mean, I think I don't know where oh, here it is, you can come and look at it. I think this helped a lot because it showed that I understood the market. And I think that, I mean, I'm not really allowed on social media and all of that. I'm a CEO of Spirit, so, people call me constantly and they want to know what they should do, this and that and all of that. And they wouldn't want somebody constantly be on, LinkedIn or somebody else and say, oh, by the way, what somebody is doing. So that's a different business. But whatever it is that you want to do, you really have to show people that you really, really understand the business. And you have to understand what is their mindset. As Corey was saying, when you talk to when I was talking to the insurance companies, I was thinking that, oh my God, they have this device and it's going to save so many lives and they're going to just rely on to buy it. But that was not the case, because this guy looked at me and said, I don't know, they're saving $1 million. Yeah, they're saving there's so many women are going to die, but that has already been built into their model, right? So the only way that you're going to get their attention is that you're going to say, not that how great this device is, which, maybe a lot of these devices are really great, cutting edge innovations, but you have to tell them, you know what, you're spending, let's say, so many billions of dollars in this market, I'm going to show you how to make another $10 billion. That's what they want to hear. They don't want to hear how great you are. They want to see how much money you're going to make. That is the bottom line. Yes?
Yeah, you've been working with a few startups, and from the marketing perspective, I'm so curious to know that how do you do the analysis of the market trends in order to come up with ideas?
Hand this over to me, please.
Yeah, because it will have to be unique.
So first of all, that's an excellent question. I think what's happening with AI is that AI is going to do that analysis for you, whether you're using ChatGPT or you're using any other LLM. That, it can do that analysis for you in maybe an hour. What you would have to do to go to the library is go to do all sorts of research, whether it's online or offline. Then you can just get on your laptop and say, oh, how about this? And it spits out, pages and pages of, what you need. So, but you have to also know what to ask. And you have to, once you get it, you have to know how to organize it. I mean, if somebody, throws you, it's like drinking from a fire hose. You have to figure out what is it exactly that you're looking for. But, I think, for example, let's say, what are you interested in? Then I can tell you what to do. What is the market you're interested in?
So like, how does it beauty products?
Well, go to the supermarket, go to Nordy's, go to Macy's, park yourself at the counter and see what people are buying, talk to people. Oh, I am so and so. How do you like this product? How do you like that product? You can ask them all sorts of, people would love to talk to you. I mean, the minute you say, oh my God, I'm a startup, they will say, yeah, they think you're like, nephew of Sam Altman. So, I don't know. But, you can talk to the people. And that is the most reliable market trend analysis that you can do. You can read all sorts of glossy magazines that we're going to say, oh, this is a color of the hair, that's the flavor of the month, that's, they're gonna tell you all sorts of things. They're getting paid by advertisers. They don't have no interest in harm. They have the advertisers' interest in harm. And that's big money. So basically what you really want to do is go talk to your customer. You have to decide who is your customer. Let's say that, I want to, sell X, Y, and Z to women ages, let's say 18 to 24, or whatever demographic that you are targeting. Go find these people. They are on campuses. They are in things like wherever they are, and say, oh, by the way, how do you think about this? That is, one of the things that when you do a startup, you should really go out there and talk to as many people as you can. I know a lot of people when I was doing startups in earlier ages, that they were always worried about somebody stealing your idea. And I can tell you that you're not unique. Whatever you are thinking about as a startup, I can guarantee you there are at least 10 other people are thinking exactly the same thing. It comes down to execution and your instinct. What is your secret sauce? What do you bring to the table? And execution is going to be very, very important. There's one more thing that you guys, I hope that it's going to be your take time. I'm just glad it came. The time. Okay, I'm just going to tell you a secret. Do you guys know Emily? Have you ever heard of Emily?
Emily's List?
No. So, okay, there's no whiteboard there. Okay. Emily is not a person. Years ago, in the early days, I don't know when it was, there was a group of women who came together and they they started this group. And it was called Emily. And the whole idea was to try to help women get elected into offices. That's a political thing. But what Emily stood for, and this is exactly what every startup needs. Emily stands for early money is like yeast. So basically what it means is that money is everything. You need to get access to funding to be able to test ideas, to be able to go ahead and prototype, whatever it is. So one of the things that, I'm a part of the sister organization to LPN, and they're called Women Founders Bay. And I really suggest to all women who are here to kind of find your way into that group, because the group is really to help women get funding. And the person who runs it, Marianne Becker, is a great person. I mean, she's an engineer, and she's really trying to help women get early funding, seed funding, and that is really, really important. You need to get your hands on money, but the dark side of that is that whoever is going to give you money, you really have to, it's like a marriage. You really have to look at that person and say, can I stand this person, for more than half an hour? If you can't, don't get the money, because you basically can't find it someplace else. So, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but about maybe 2 or 3% of all of the VC funding goes to women. Now 2 to 3% is like nothing. It used to be 0.2%. Now we have, come on. So the whole idea is really to try to get funding to women like yourself as much as we can early on. Because I think that, to me, I don't care whether you're a man or a woman. I really care about what you're going to produce. The proof is in the pudding. If you can, have a product that people can use, and as Sako says, it's useful, then the market eventually is going to find you. I mean, you are in a much better shape than you think you are, because, right now you have social media, you have all sorts of things that you can get the world out there. But you have to have what we call a market fit. You have to, first of all, I really encourage you to find a niche, which is small, to serve that market, to figure out everything about that market, serve that market, then you can scale. And there are about, 1 million VCs who are going to help you scale. But you really have to lock that market. And that is how a lot of these companies who really are big right now, that's how they started. They really served a very small niche at the beginning, which they thought, this was the niche. And they went from there because they bought that market and the word of mouth get around. Any other questions? Yes.
But what are the AI platform which solves business to business problem?
How to solve the business problem? What business problem?
Let's say, in terms of A is doing a business consultant, and the B is the customer who's product is company who's selling the products to the customers. So due to some issues in the customer segment, like CRM, all those stuff, how can a business, this product company can consult a business company with the platform, which business under company will it does that company.
So what's the problem you're trying to solve?
So we see a lot of platforms in the field which solve customer like OpenAI and all the integrated stuff which the company has built from it. So is there any personal AI tool which can connect business to business and solve their problem? Like Salesforce out there to grab their data.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea, isn't it? To have a ChatGPT type of a chatbot connecting business to business. That doesn't exist actually. People don't know. But go ahead.
I've seen a search engine, actually they removed it now, but along those lines. It was called GovDaddy, and their business changed since then, but what I saw it includes like a chat GPT, you could search for government contracts. So yeah, the tools like that are really valuable. Yeah.
Business to business is one of the biggest markets. The problem is that people cannot crack it because I have a lot of rights to be in the big business myself. And the problem, as I said, is that it's impossible to find the right person in this thing. It's impossible. So the corporate, you missed the beginning, you should have come earlier. But the corporations, as I said earlier on when I started my talk, they're not really into innovation that much. And I think, probably Steven is broadcasting this, so I should be careful. But, I think the companies really can, the minute, even if you're a startup, and I don't know if I'm rambling or I'm asking you a question, but you could chance. So a lot of these companies, big companies, let's say, the biggest companies, the minute the startup becomes a public company, you have an IPO, then your customer, the customer of that business becomes the shareholders, not the public. So they have to answer to the shareholders. Now, as a shareholder, I have NVIDIA stocks. I love NVIDIA. I think that, if I could go there and, kill a cow, sacrifice for NVIDIA, I would. But I think that, there was a time that, NVIDIA was just, they were making all of the software, so nobody understood what they were doing. The GPUs that they are using for AI wasn't intended for AI, it was intended for gaming. NVIDIA was one of the biggest producers of gaming software, right? But they had to reinvent themselves, and Jensen is very smart, and he looked around and he looked at the open market. So whatever you see in the market as a consumer product, the equivalent of that in the business world is gold. But you have to figure out who to talk to in that business, because if they have 20,000 people, there are 5 people in there that you have to get to, and that's going to be impossible. So one of the things that I would do is I would charge money to consult on it. but I think that, it's an interesting problem, but I would say that business to business is golden. Every time you go to talk to an VC, he says, go away and bring me a business to business solution. So one of the things that I would recommend that you do is just go park yourself on the Sand Hill Road or wherever it is, get one of those big bullet boards and say, oh, this is what you're doing. And chances are that some VC who's going to drive by who's going to see it and say, oh, I want to talk to them. But I think, building a kind of a community, when you look at the social media, there's just too much noise there. But if you can build a community, like, let's say what Cyber has done with LPM, if you build that kind of, intimate community, as intimate as you can get, 1,000 people, is that you are going to get access to, 20% more than you normally would on any other channel. So I would, you can come and talk to me later, but one of the things that Sacco said, and he wants me to do something about it, is that it says technical people are very, very, they're not good at getting their point across, and I always tell people to go design something that you can describe it to your grandmother. If she doesn't understand it, you don't have a business until you figure it out. Anybody else? I think I'm standing between you and pizza. I don't know, is it pizza here?
No, it's not here.
Oh, so I have to talk more.
Yeah, we can take a break.
I take a break. Can you take a bathroom break?
Can you take a break? No, I was thinking you could take a good, brief picture.
So why don't we just break until pizza gets here and then we'll talk more.
You want to take a picture?
Yeah. Is everyone come out?
Yeah.
You're not in it. You're not in it.
Okay, let me do one something.
Okay.
I don't think I should. Okay. So yeah, feel free to take a break and we'll have a pizza and then I will go and talk a bit more about hackathon and AI tooling that I was using, a bit more tech side, and then we will put probably randomly choose a team up you. So you can experience what I was just going through, the playbook I had. So try to apply some of these steps, and if you get time, you can do also engineering. If not, just coming up with problem side of things and just doing quick presentation would be helpful. For that, you apply the learning. So I will also share the slides and everything. So I guess now you can just take a break, short break, network talk.
Draw water, drinks, and refreshment while they're waiting for the pizza in case they're.
Yeah. So yeah, do basically whatever you want, and then till pizza come, and then we will go right now. Yeah, go ahead. So the next quarter, I think constantly there are a couple they do it. So there is less presentation, so there is HR policy. They do. Oh, I mentioned this. Yeah, it's I did check out. I used time to check. What's in your goal?